The Russian army has intensified its offensive in the Pokrovsk direction, accounting for a third of all battlefield engagements. After a brief pause for regrouping, occupying forces are now ramping up their attacks, according to Viktor Chekhubov, a spokesman for the operational and strategic grouping of troops, Hostilities. Russian troops are deploying all available weapons to advance, though there are no signs yet of a repeat of the peak assault levels seen in February 2025.
From the beginning, I have said that in the case of Pokrovsk, the Russians will not give up it easily. They may temporarily shift their forces to other directions, but they need the city, so this all makes sense. Every settlement holds strategic importance for them. There are no significantly large settlements near Pokrovsk, only small villages. Viktor Chekhubov, spokesman for the operational and strategic grouping of troops, Hostilities, in an interview with Free Radio.
At the beginning of March, Russian forces reduced their attacks on Pokrovsk and instead intensified their operations near Toretsk. Now they have resumed their offensive attempts in the Pokrovsk area. According to the representative of Hostilities, Russian troops are trying to advance along the southwest edge of the city, but so far without notable success. More than 2,500 civilians remain in the city, according to the Pokrovsk military administration, which continues evacuation efforts.
For the Pokrovsk community, this spring is loud and destructive. The city and surrounding villages are under daily Russian shelling. They are being hit with guided bombs, artillery and FPV drones, which now reach as far as Robinske. Evacuation efforts have intensified. Serhiy Dobryak, head of the Pokrovsk city military administration, on Telegram.
The Russian army has also stepped up its activities in the Kupiansk-Liman direction. All of this indicates that Moscow has no intention of ending its war against Ukraine, experts believe. Mobilization in Russia has also not slowed. According to Ukraine's Minister of Defense, in 2024, at least 427,000 soldiers were conscripted into the aggressor state's army. In 2025, the Kremlin plans to mobilize another 280,000 people. Russian forces are suffering massive losses in both personnel and equipment. At the end of 2024 and the beginning of 2025, Russia was losing over 40,000 soldiers per month. New recruits are expected to fill these gaps, but analysts point out that the Russian military lacks the necessary resources to fulfill Putin's plans.
There have been no significant advances compared to November and December of last year. The data clearly shows that the Russian army is slowing down considerably.
Putin wants war, and everything else is just a smokescreen, said Ukraine's Minister of Foreign Affairs Andriy Sybiha. He emphasized that Kyiv has given clear consent to a 30-day ceasefire, but Moscow has no real intention of halting its military aggression.
We have already begun forming a national team to develop mechanisms for effectively monitoring a possible ceasefire, an extremely complex process. As of today, the frontline where daily battles occur stretches over 1,300 kilometers.
Experts believe that Russian forces will continue trying to seize as much Ukrainian territory as possible.
They will likely play this card for as long as they can. For now, they are stalling, hoping to gain more territorial advantages and strengthen their position on the ground.
According to journalists from Sky News, Putin shows no sign of compromise, and Kremlin's stance has not changed. The Russian dictator will never outright reject a US proposal for a ceasefire, but he will not support it either, the publication notes. This means that Russia will continue claiming to seek peace, while in reality prolonging the war. Reported by Katerina Bastun, Victoria Smirnova, UATV News. During negotiations in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, the Ukrainian delegation presented three key initiatives to the United States: silence in the sky, silence at sea, and real measures to establish trust. The US side proposed a complete 30-day ceasefire, prohibiting not only missile attacks and naval combat, but also halting hostilities along the entire front line.
Ukraine expressed readiness to accept the US proposal to enact an immediate immediate interim 30-day ceasefire, which can be extended by mutual agreement of the parties and which is subject to acceptance and concurrent implementation by the Russian Federation. The United States will communicate to Russia that Russian reciprocity is the key to achieving peace. From the joint statement of Ukrainian and American delegations following their meeting in Jeddah.
This was the first constructive meeting between the Ukrainian and American delegations, stated President Volodymyr Zelensky after the negotiations. According to him, if the 30-day ceasefire is achieved, Kyiv will use this period to engage with its partners on security guarantees for Ukraine.
We will discuss security guarantees in more detail if the 30-day ceasefire holds. These 30-days are allocated precisely to put everything on paper. We have our own proposals, but we need to finalize and document agreed-upon steps with our allies. Steps that will outline the security guarantees Ukraine will have after this war ends.
Ukraine's Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha clarified that a temporary ceasefire in Russia's war against Ukraine does not imply freezing the conflict. He emphasized that Ukrainian defense forces will continue their military operations, since the ceasefire will only take effect if Russia agrees and adheres to it.
Why is this kind of temporary ceasefire important? Because it is not about freezing the conflict. It is merely an attempt to initiate a fair path toward ending the war. It is also a step that clearly demonstrates who is genuinely interested in peace. Andriy Sybiha, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, on Facebook.
Washington will pass the proposal for a 30-day ceasefire to Russia. However, a timeline for this is still uncertain. The US hopes that Moscow will agree to the ceasefire. The ball is truly in their court, said US Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
Ukraine is prepared to stop all battlefield activity and begin the immediate process of negotiating an enduring end to the war, and we'll see what their response is. If their response is yes, then we know we've made real progress and there's a real chance of peace. If their response is no, it will be highly unfortunate and it would make their intentions clear. Marco Rubio, US Secretary of State.
The Russian side is waiting for more detailed information from Washington, said Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov. However, according to Reuters, the Russian leader is unlikely to accept the US proposal.
From Moscow's perspective, the ceasefire proposal appears to be a trap. Putin would find it hard to agree to the ceasefire idea without hashing out terms and getting some sort of guarantees. Without guarantees, Russia's position could quickly weaken, allowing the West to accuse Russia of failing to end the war. From the Reuters publication.
If Russia rejects the ceasefire proposal, the United States will have only one option, writes The Telegraph, to intensify pressure on the Kremlin and provide Ukraine with even greater military support. Reported by Katerina Bastun, Valeria Nikipelova, UATV News.